This is part two of a two-part series on some Jehovah's Witness literature I found at my doctor's office. The first one is in many ways more egregious because it concerns mental health, and a doctor's office is obviously a place where many vulnerable people are going to be going. So putting it there, pretty offensive if you ask me. Jehovah's Witnesses are not the best about mental health. And actually, even though this document we're going to talk about today isn't about mental health, it does cross over into that territory from what I know about Jehovah's Witnesses. But again, as I said in the last clip, I am no expert. If you want an expert, go to Owen Morgan, Telltale Atheist. He is an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and he can tell you some stories that'll make your toes curl. But if you're going to stick around and watch this video, let me show you what we're going to be talking about today. This pamphlet is called Awake: 12 Secrets of Successful Families. It seems pretty innocuous, right? I mean, look at this. Look at how happy and healthy these families look. These are the ideal families, right? Well, if you know a few things about Jehovah's Witnesses, you're going to realize that this is bullshit. And let me tell you why this is bullshit. Well, first of all, they are not as into families as they say they are, because if you leave the religion, or if you perform some act that the religion disagrees with, like smoking cigarettes or being gay, you can become an apostate, and they will cut you off and forbid family and friends within the church from talking to you. Sometimes, a lot of the time, this is the only people you ever know, because the Jehovah's Witnesses like to keep it in the family in a more literal sense. They like to have you surrounded by them and people like them. They don't say you can't make friends on the outside. What they do say is, you probably shouldn't, because they're not holy. They will expose you to the world, and there's nothing worse than that. It can impact your relationship with Jehovah. With that in mind, let's check out these 12 secrets for successful families, or of successful families. Alright, so they try to break it down a little bit here. For couples, commitment, teamwork, respect, forgiveness. For parents, communication, discipline, values, example. For young people, identity, trustworthiness, industriousness, goals. Let's get into it. Let's see what they have to say. Let's check out this first page. We hear a lot about what goes wrong in families that fail, but what goes right in those that succeed. Between 1990 and 2015, the divorce rate in the United States doubled for those over the age of 50 and tripled for those over the age of 65. Parents are confused. Some experts recommend giving children constant praise, while others advocate tough love. Young people are entering adulthood without skills they need. Nevertheless, the fact is, marriage can be rewarding and a permanent bond. Parents can learn to discipline their children with love. Young people can gain the skills they need for adulthood. How? This issue of Awake will discuss. So I just want to point out one thing here. Marriage can be a rewarding and permanent bond. I would suspect, I can't confirm this, but I would suspect that they probably have some prohibition on divorce, because divorce in a lot of more fundamentalist and culty sects is a sin, and a serious one. Now, I can't say for sure. I don't know enough about Jehovah's Witnesses, so you should definitely look that up yourself. But I think you can strongly suspect such a thing. If there are such strong prohibitions, that would explain why they think they have the answers. Another thing that I could point out here, young people are entering adulthood without the skills they need to succeed. Now, I have met a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses over the years and heard their stories, and from what I can tell, they seem like very sheltered people. I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses are giving the skills that they need. Jehovah's Witnesses are deliberately making it so that a lot of children who grow up in their environments have little exposure to the outside world, little real exposure. I mean, they're not allowed to go to parties or celebrate holidays or anything like that, and that does have a negative impact on development. So I don't buy this argument that Jehovah's Witnesses will give your children what they need to succeed and become successful adults. There is a lot of information on these pages, so I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible, but I cannot guarantee this will be a quick ride, so strap in. Let's do this. For couples, 1, commitment. Commitment is like an anchor that keeps your marriage steady during stormy times. Husbands and wives who are committed to marriage view it as a permanent bond, and that creates a sense of security between them. Each spouse is confident that the other will honor the union even in difficult times. Bible principle: a husband should not leave his wife. 1 Corinthians 7:11. If you are committed to your marriage, you allow yourself to be wronged. You are quick to forgive and quick to apologize. You view problems as obstacles, not as deal breakers. Now, that's a good attitude to have. Micah, guessing that's Bible or whatever, but I don't know. If Micah's just a random dude, well, a good thought, my dude. Why it matters. When confronted with problems, spouses without commitment are more likely to conclude we just aren't made for each other and look for ways to get out of the marriage. Many people go into marriage knowing that they have a fallback plan: divorce. When people enter marriage already thinking about the possibility of divorce, their commitment is lacking right from the start. Gene. Who is Gene? What expertise do you have, Gene? But this does kind of tell you like that they are very anti-divorce, and it probably is sort of prohibited, maybe not like a strong prohibition, but they do look down very strongly upon it from what you can gather here. But keep in mind, there are many issues that you cannot solve amicably. And maybe they make carve-outs for that. I hope they do. But if they don't, that sucks. And, sometimes people just aren't right for one another. Like, you can think you're right for somebody and get married and find out you're not actually right for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. It happens. But these people don't see it that way. They're wrong, of course. What you can do: test yourself. When in the middle of a dispute, do you find yourself regretting that you married your spouse? I'd say a lot of people do at times. Do you daydream about being with someone else? Well, there's your sign. Do you say things such as "I'm leaving you," or "I'm going to find someone who appreciates me"? Well, if you're saying that, you probably don't feel appreciated. You probably should get out of a situation where you don't feel appreciated. Just saying. If you answered yes to one or more of those questions, now is the time to strengthen your commitment. Okay, well, I should have expected that, but that's kind of odd. If your partner doesn't appreciate you, what are you strengthening there? Discuss with your spouse. Write an occasional love note. Show your commitment by displaying photos of your spouse on your desk at work. Phone your spouse each day while you are at work or apart. Bible principle: what God has yoked together, let no man put apart. They're really pushing it very hard. Teamwork. I don't really see a problem with what this part says, so I don't really see much point in covering this. But of course, in Jehovah's Witnesses, men and women are not really, or in Jehovah's Witness, sort of like theology, men and women are not equal. The man is to rule the household in their little theology. They are very fundamentalist in this way, and they may talk a big game about teamwork. But in the end, it's the man who is in charge of the team as the head of the household. This is just common stuff for this sort of group. Respect. I don't see how you can respect your partner if your partner is viewed as lesser than you. And if your partner is viewed as better than you or above you, then you sort of are mandated to respect that. And that is a very unfortunate way to have a marriage. But let's read a little bit about it and see what it says. Respectful couples care about each other even during a disagreement. Bible principle: love does not look for its own interests. Well, sometimes it can. Sometimes your interests are very important. If you're being abused, that's a pretty important interest to look out for. If your children are being hurt in some way, very important stuff to look out for. I guess Micah is just some random guy and not a biblical character in this sense. To respect my wife means that I appreciate her value and don't want to do anything that would damage her or our marriage. We don't know anything about this person. This person could be abusive. This person could be terrible. We don't know anything about this person. Why are we trusting Micah? Give us some more about Micah. Who is Micah? What exactly is their expertise here? What you can do: test yourself. Track your conversation and actions for a week. Then ask yourself, how often did I criticize my spouse, and how often did I give her a compliment? I don't see anything wrong with that. In what specific ways did I show respect for my spouse? See, this is the thing about this kind of document. It has a lot of like common sense suggestions, but there's always something just behind it, something just around the corner or hidden in the subtext that you can really flesh out to find out it's not what it seems to be. Respectful speech is the mortar that can hold your marriage together. If you think the big problem with a lot of marriages ending is that they didn't have respectful speech, I got news for you. See, a big problem with groups like this is they think they understand how things work, but because they're looking from the outside in, they don't have any real perspective on it. So they take very simplified views and think they know how to solve it. Really, what's solving it is not any of these suggestions. What's going to be solving it, if anything solves it, is that they have such strong prohibitions on things like divorce. That's not much of a solution because that results in a lot of abuse and a lot of other negativity and a lot of wasted time. So this is all pretense. This is just saying we can give you advice that will help your relationship be stronger, it'll help your marriage be stronger, but that's not what they're doing. They are misleading you into thinking they can make your relationship stronger, that they have good advice. Because some of it is good advice. A lot of it's good advice. But this is no recipe for success. There is no recipe for success. Especially not this easy or this simplistic. And I question every bit of it just based on that. But next point is forgiveness. Forgiveness can put out the flames of a conflict. You know what else it can do? It can also enable some really bad behavior and some really bad tendencies. I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. It's good to forgive. I try to forgive everybody for everything, but I don't forget when people have crossed me in serious ways that put me in danger or at risk or hurt me in some way. And I think here for this, forgiveness is more than just forgiving someone. It's a method of control. And again, I'm taking this sort of from stories I've heard from ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of them actually had escaped really bad marriages. And forgiveness it can be a good thing. But it can also be a very bad thing if you are trapped in a religious structure like this that is so strict about almost everything. Now let's move on from the couples part to the for parents part. Communication. Communication is good. You should communicate with your kids. Genuine communication takes place when you and your children share a two-way exchange of thoughts and feelings. Why it matters. Communication can become especially challenging with teenagers. Let's see. What you can do. Adapt to your child's timetable. Do so even if it means late-night conversations. Sure, fine. That's all good. Fight distraction. One father admits, I sometimes find myself mentally multitasking when my children are speaking, and I'm not fooling them. They can tell. That's perfectly fine advice. Take advantage of informal settings. Discipline. What it means. The word discipline can mean to guide or to teach. At times, that includes correcting a child's misbehavior. Often, though, it involves imparting moral training that helps a child to learn to make good choices in the first place. Now, Owen Morgan, Telltale Atheist, has some good videos on this shit right here. So this stuff, correcting a child's misbehavior, if your child is gay or trans, the way they correct this is obviously very bad, because those are things that can't be corrected. But of course, Jehovah's Witnesses definitely believe you can correct those things. And there are plenty of horror stories to come out of the cult for this reason. The moral training part, too, helping a child to make good choices in the first place. There is a fascinating series called Caleb and Sophia that Owen Morgan covers in his thing. And it is horrifying, because their moral lessons are always just completely deranged and unhinged. And I think everyone should go watch those series, just see some of them. You don't have to stay long, but just watch some of them, because you'll find out very quickly what they mean by this stuff right here. It is not as innocent and as innocuous as it sounds. What seems like good advice on its face can often mask something much worse, as I've already discussed. Why it matters. In recent decades, discipline has all but disappeared from some households as parents feel that correction might lower a child's self-esteem. And that is a valid worry. That is a valid concern. However, wise parents set reasonable rules and train their children to abide by them. Sure. Children need boundaries to help them grow into well-rounded adults. Without discipline, children are like a rudderless ship, which will eventually go off course or even capsize. Pamela says this. Who is Pamela? We don't know. We don't know any of these people. But Pamela, I suspect your children may not like you a whole lot in the future if you treat them the way I've heard a lot of parents treat kids within this group. Be consistent, be reasonable, be loving. Yeah, sure. But, the devil is always in the detail with these things. And again, if your child commits sometimes very small negative acts like smoking a cigarette, you can end up having them disowned, actually. Like, it's very strict. And that's not exactly a good thing for families, I gotta say. Values. What it means. Values are the personal standards by which you choose to live. For example, do you strive to be honest in all things? Then likely you will want to instill that moral value in your children. I think it's important to note, though, that children are not just copies of yourself. They are not just clones of you and your best behavior. Children have their own things in life. They are individual humans. They are their own people, and they will grow up different than you. You can't do anything about that. And when they do, you got to ask yourself, do you want to be in a position where you can make your child's life a whole lot worse and disown them, hoping that someday they come back into the fold? Or do you want to be a good parent and actually stick around to help them through the harder times? Because Jehovah's Witnesses would have you make that first choice, and I do not consider that to be a good choice. Values also include ethical standards. Laughable for these people to talk about ethics with how they treat other people. For example, a person with solid ethics is industrious, fair, and considerate of others, traits that are best developed while a person is still young. And traits, some of them, which are not to be found in Jehovah's Witnesses, like considerate of others. I've seen a video, again from Owen Morgan, where he talks to some Jehovah's Witnesses in public, and once they find out he's an apostate, they refuse to talk to him. He has done nothing wrong to them, said nothing bad to them, just wants to talk. And because he is an apostate, they turn away. How considerate. In an age of technology, moral values are essential. Yeah, I do think that parents should pay more attention to what their children consume, and frankly, be very afraid if your children start consuming Jehovah's Witness material. Ethical values are essential too. Just repeating yourself here. What you can do, state your moral values. For example, research shows that teenagers are more likely to abstain from premarital sex if they have been given the clear message that such conduct is wrong. I disagree. I am from the South. I know that in the South, people are taught that premarital sex is wrong. You know what happens anyway? You know the only place that probably teaches that as hard as the South does? I mean, there is no other place. It's just the South. That's pounded into your head all the time. But yet, teenage pregnancy is everywhere, constant. People crank out kids like it's nothing here. So yeah, don't buy it. That's not enough. You have to have more comprehensive education than that to solve the problem. Tip: use a current event to initiate a discussion about values. For example, if the news reports a hate crime, you could say, "It's horrible the way some people show such anger towards others. How do you think people become like that?" So here's one thing I must compliment Jehovah's Witnesses on. They are actually pacifists. They are extremely anti-violence, and I think they would decry hate crimes even against people they don't like. They are not the biggest fans of gay people or trans people, but because they're such strong pacifists and they don't like that sort of like violence stuff, I think they would oppose hate crimes against the LGBT, so we can at least say that's good. Let's move on to the example. It just says, for parents, example. It should say like, well, be an example, but whatever. Parents who set the example live by what they teach. For example, you could hardly expect your son to be truthful if he overheard you say, "Tell him I'm not home," when you do not want to speak to someone at the door. But here's the problem. I'm sorry for using so much of Owen Morgan's stuff here. I am not him. These are not my stories, and I probably have little right to tell them like they are. So Owen Morgan, his stories. But as far as I'm aware, he was apparently honest about smoking a cigarette, and that ended up being the event that got him kicked out of the religion and separated from his entire family. So if you want to teach your children to be honest and truthful, you can't really do so in such a disciplinarian setting, or you're just setting them up for some really serious negative trouble. Literally, obviously, it changed his whole life and his whole life trajectory and ruined a lot of his relationships. And it's hard to expect anyone to be honest in an environment like that. Jehovah's Witnesses will not help your relations with your children. Why it matters. Children, teenagers are influenced more by their parents than anyone else, including peers. Well, that's up for debate. That means you are in the primary position to guide your children in the right way, provided, of course, that you practice what you preach. What you can do, examine your own standards, apologize for your mistakes. Big problem here is that the doctrine is so strict that mistakes are really hard to say, because what constitutes a mistaken behavior in a religion this strict? Now, I think we all have our own standards for that, and obviously in this they're going to vary too, but in this case, I'm not really convinced that they can know what the big mistakes are by most standards, but let's move on to the next part because this video is getting a little bit long. For young people, identity. With such a strong personal identity, you can withstand powerful storms. What it means, your identity goes far beyond your name and appearance. It involves your values, beliefs, and character. Really, your identity is everything that makes you you, both inside and out. Like, oh, being gay? No, not that. Why it matters. When you have a strong sense of identity, you stand up for your beliefs instead of allowing your peers to control you. But if you do stand up for your beliefs and they are different than Jehovah's Witnesses and you are in a Jehovah's Witness family, you will be kicked out and separated from everyone you love. So again, garbage. They are lying, straight up lying if they're saying like this is what they encourage, because they don't. They don't encourage this at all in Jehovah's Witnesses. What you can do, develop a sense of who you are now and who you want to become by analyzing your strengths, weaknesses, and convictions. A good way to start is by answering the following questions. What talents and skills do I have? What are my strong points? Are you having trouble identifying strong things about yourself? Ask a parent or trusted friend what they think and what they see. Okay, sure, fine, whatever. Not terrible advice, but again, you got to remember, these people, they don't like if you stand up for what you believe in and it's different than what they believe in. They are really harsh towards even the smallest dissent. Keep that in mind when discussing stuff like this. For young people, trustworthiness. Obeying your parents is like paying off a debt to the bank. The more reliable you are, the more trust or credit you will receive. You shouldn't always be loyal to your parents. Sometimes your parents are bad. Luckily, my parents aren't too bad, but sometimes your parents will be really bad. There are plenty of cases where you should not be loyal to your parents. It is not worth having their trust, and when they are in a cult, I would say it is especially not worth it. Trustworthy people earn the confidence of their parents, friends, and employers. They abide by the rules, keep their promises, and always tell the truth, which is, again, something you don't want to do in the context of this religion. You want to keep the truth to yourself, because if you don't, it can be bad news. In almost every case, the amount of freedom you receive is directly related to the level of trust you have earned over time. The best way to earn your parents' trust is to demonstrate that you are mature and responsible, not only when you are with them, but also when they are not around. Sarai, I think that's how you say that. Sarai, I don't know you, and I don't know why I should trust you. What you can do, be honest. Nothing will shatter others' trust in you quicker than lies. Now, imagine you're in this religion and you go up to your parents and say, I'm gay. You think that's going to do anything good for your life? No, it's going to just ruin everything. So, just garbage. Be dependable. Yeah, sure, whatever. Be patient. All good. Take Amtrak like I do. That'll make you real patient. Industriousness. Well, I don't think I have any problems with that. Goals. Well, goals are fine. So on aggregate, this stuff right here, they try to mask a lot of what they actually think. They try to mask a lot of what they're really like. They give some good advice that practically you cannot follow within the confines of this religion, because if you do, it'll get you into some serious trouble and maybe lose everything for you. But let's check out the back. The last one had a very interesting back. Let's see how this one is. More help for the family. The Bible provides the most reliable guidance available for couples, parents, and young people. Its principles can improve a person's thinking ability and good judgment. The Bible also answers life's big questions, such as what is the meaning of life? Is God to blame for our suffering? What happens when we die? So, just a couple last thoughts here. The Bible provides the most reliable guidance available for couples, parents, and young people. Its principles can improve a person's thinking ability and good judgment. Well, no, it can't. And Jehovah's Witnesses seem like they've set out to prove this time and time again by making false predictions, prophecies, those sorts of things, and just like not admitting it and just saying, well, it did happen, just not in the way we were all expecting. Like Jesus came back in 1914, but he came back spiritually, not in the flesh, not to take us all home. That sort of thing. But they were founded on something like that, I think. I think didn't they come from the Great Awakening or no, the Great Disappointment, where a bunch of people were waiting for the second coming of Jesus in like the 1940s and it didn't happen. And then they formed a cult, a bunch of cults. And this turned out to be one of them. I think that's the origin. I'm not exactly sure. You might want to look that up. The Bible also answers life's big questions, such as what is the meaning of life? Is God to blame for our suffering? What happens when we die? It doesn't really give great answers for those things, but sure, whatever. See, the thing is, in a place like this where I'm at, most people are Christian. So they're already going to believe like the basics of that. So this is like, people here are ripe fruits. They are for the taking. And I'd say the Jehovah's Witnesses know it. And I obviously I would not want to join this group, but there are going to be a lot of people here who don't know just how bad this stuff is. They'll pick this document up, they'll read it and think, oh yeah, this all sounds great. And it does, superficially, until you realize the religion itself and being inside of it is very different than this idealistic garbage here. Idealistic, not idealistic. So there you have it. There is the second document I found in my doctor's office about the Jehovah's Witnesses. They are recruiting here, and I'd say they're recruiting everywhere. But let's hope that nobody picks this up and joins the religion, because this is garbage. It's nonsense. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you have the patience of a saint, and I thank you for it. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you have something to say, positive or negative, leave a comment. I will probably respond. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe. Tell me about anything you'd like to see me cover, videos, articles, whatever. I'll try to cover it if I can. And have a great day, unless you are the person who put this garbage in my doctor's office.